Sefer Torah. A Sefer Torah, Book of Torah, Sefer Torah, or Torah Scroll, is a handwritten copy of the Torah, meaning the five books of Moses, the first books of the Hebrew Bible. The Torah Scroll is mainly used in the ritual of Torah reading during Jewish prayers. At other times, it is stored in the holiest spot within a synagogue, the Torah Ark, which is usually an ornate curtained-off cabinet or section of the synagogue built along the wall that most closely faces Jerusalem, the direction Jews face when praying. The text of the Torah is also commonly printed and bound in book form for non-ritual functions, called a chumash, plural chumashim, five-part, for the five books of Moses, and is often accompanied by commentaries or translations. History. The Ein Gedi scroll is an ancient Hebrew parchment found in 1970 at Ein Gedi, Israel. Radiocarbon testing dates the scroll to the 3rd or 4th century CE, 210 to 390 CE. Although paleographical considerations suggest that the scroll may date back to the 1st or 2nd century CE, this scroll was discovered to contain a portion of the biblical book of Leviticus, making it the earliest copy of a Torah book ever found in a holy ark. The deciphered text fragment is identical to what was to become during the Middle Ages, the standard text of the Hebrew Bible, known as the Mesoteric Text, which it precedes by several centuries, and constitutes the earliest evidence of this authoritative text version. Damaged by a fire in approximately 600 CE, the scroll is badly charred and fragmented and required non-invasive scientific and computational techniques to virtually unwrap and read, which was completed in 2015 by a team led by Professor Seals of the University of Kentucky. Usage. Torah reading from a Sefer Torah or Torah Scroll is traditionally reserved for Monday and Thursday mornings, as well as for Shabbat, fast days, and Jewish holidays. The presence of a quorum of 10 Jewish adults, minyan, is required for the reading of the Torah to be held in public during the course of the worship services. As the Torah is sung following the often dense text is aided by a yad, hand, a metal or wooden hand-shaped pointer that projects the scrolls by avoiding unnecessary contact of the skin with the parchment. All Jewish prayers start with a blessing, Barakah, thanking God for revealing the law to the Jews, Matan Torah, before reading, and all days during the first blessings of the morning prayer, Shacharit, production. According to Halakha, Jewish law, a Sefer Torah is a copy of the Hebrew text of the Torah handwritten on special types of parchment. By using a quill or another permitted writing utensil dipped in ink, producing a Torah scroll fulfills one of the 613 commandments. Written entirely in Biblical Hebrew, a Torah scroll contains 304,805 letters, all of which must be duplicated precisely by a trained scribe or sofer, an effort which may take as long as approximately 1.5 years. An error during transcription may render the Torah scroll pasul, invalid. According to the Talmud, all scrolls must also be written on javil, parchment that is treated with salt, flour, and mafatzim, a residue of wasp enzyme and tree bark, in order to be valid. Scrolls not processed in this way are considered invalid. These are only two types of kosher parchment allowed for a Torah scroll, javil and cloth. The ink used is subject to specific rules. After the preparation of the parchment sheet, the scribe must mark out the parchment using the sargel ruler, ensuring the guidelines are straight. Only the top guide is done and the letters suspended from it Most modern Torah scrolls are written with 42 lines of text per column. Yemenite Jews use 51. Very strict rules about the position and appearance of the Hebrew alphabet are observed. Any of several Hebrew scripts may be used, most of which are fairly ornate and exacting. The fidelity of the Hebrew text of the Tanakh and the Torah in particular is considered paramount, down to the last letter. Translations or transcriptions are frowned upon for formal service use, and transcribing is done with painstaking care. Some errors are inevitable in the course of production. If the error involves a word other than the names of God, the mistaken letter may be obliterated from the scroll by scraping the letter off the scroll with a sharp object. If the name of God is written in error, the entire page must be cut from the scroll and a new page added, and the page written anew from the beginning. The new page is sewn into the scroll to maintain continuity of the document. The old page is treated with appropriate respect and is buried with respect rather than being otherwise destroyed or discarded. The completion of the Torah scroll is a cause for great celebration, and honored guests of the individual who commissioned the Torah are invited to a celebration wherein each of the honored guests is given the opportunity to write one of the final letters. It is great honor to be chosen for this commandment to write a scroll. It is a religious duty or mitzvah for every Jewish male to either write or have written for him a Torah scroll. Of the 613 commandments, one, the 82nd, as enumerated by Rashi, and the final, as it occurs in the text, the book of Deuteronomy 31:19, is that every Jewish male should write a Torah scroll in his lifetime. This is the law number 613 of 613 in the list of laws of the Torah as recorded by Rabbi Joseph Telushkin in his book Biblical Literacy, first edition, New York, Morrow, 1997, page 592. The commandment that each Jew should write a Torah scroll during his lifetime. It is considered a tremendous merit to write or commission the writing of a Torah scroll, and a significant honor to have a Torah scroll written in one's honor or memory. Professional scribes, soferim. In modern times, it is usual for some scholars to become soferim and to be paid to complete a Torah scroll under contract on behalf of a community or by individuals to mark a special occasion or commemoration. Because of the work involved, these can cost tens of thousands of United States dollars to produce to ritually proper standards. Chumash, a printed version of the Torah, is known colloquially as a Chumash, Pro Chumashim. Although strictly speaking, it is known as Chamisha, Chumshe Torah, 5/5 of Torah. They are treated as respected texts, but not anywhere near the level of sacredness accorded a Torah scroll, which is often a major possession of a Jewish community. A Chumash contains the Torah and other writings, usually organized for liturgical use, and sometimes accompanied by some of the main classic commentaries. Torah Ark, while not in use, a Sefer Torah is housed in the Torah Ark, Aron Kodesh or Hekal, which in its turn is usually veiled by an embroidered parchet curtain, as it should be according to Exodus 26:31 to 34. External decorations. The gold and silver ornaments belonging to the scroll are collectively known as Kala Kodesh, sacred vessels. The scroll itself will often be girded with a strip of silk, wimple, and robed with a piece of protective fine fabric called the mantle of the law. It is decorated with an ornamental priestly breastplate, scroll handles, etz chaim, and the principal ornament, the crown of the law, which is made to fit over the upper ends of the rollers when the scroll is closed. Some scrolls have two crowns, one for each upper end. The metal work is often made of beaten silver, sometimes gilded. The scroll handles, breastplate, and crown often have little bells attached to them. The housing has two rollers, each of which has two handles used for scrolling the text, four handles in all. Between the handles and the rollers are round plates or discs, which are carved with images of holy places, engraved with dedications to the honored parents or other loved ones, and decorated with gold or silver. Mizrachi and Romanio traditions. In the Mizrachi and Romania traditions, the Torah scroll is generally not robed in a mantle, but rather housed in an ornamental wooden case which protects the scroll, called a tik, plural tikim. On the other hand, in most Sephardic communities, those communities associated with the Spanish diaspora, such as Moroccan Jews, the Spanish and Portuguese Jews, with the exception of the Hamburg tradition, and the Judeo-Spanish communities of the Ottoman Empire, do not use tikim but rather vestidos, mantles. Inauguration: the installation of a new Torah scroll into a synagogue or into the sanctuary or study hall, Beth Midrash of a religious school, yeshiva, rabbinical college, university campus, nursing home, military base, or other institution is done in a ceremony known as Hachnosah Sefer Torah, or ushering in a Torah scroll. This is accompanied by celebratory dancing, singing, and a festive meal. Biblical roots: this practice has its source in the escorting of the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, led by King David. As described in the books of Samuel, this event was marked by dancing and the playing of musical instruments. 2 Samuel chapter 6 verse 14 to 15. Both the priest or Kohanim and David himself danced before the ark or danced before the Lord, handling the Torah scroll. Special prayers are recited when the Torah scroll is removed from the ark and the text is chanted rather than spoken in a special melodic manner. C. Cantillation and nigun. Whenever the scroll is opened to be read, it is laid on a piece of cloth called the mappa. When the Torah scroll is carried through the synagogue, the members of the congregation may touch the edge of their prayer shawl, talit, to the Torah scroll and then kiss the shawl as a sign of respect. See also five Megillot, the five scrolls, parts of the Hebrew Bible traditionally grouped together. Hakel, biblical commandment to assemble for a Torah reading. Ktav Ashuri, the Aramaic alphabet adopted by Judaism. List of Hebrew manuscripts, list of ancient scrolls and codices. Tikkun, book, used to prepare for the reading of Torah scroll in synagogue. Torah scroll, Yemenite, the specific Yemenite as opposed to Ashkenazi or Sephardic tradition of writing the Torah scroll. Universal Torah Registry, an initiative to prevent Torah scroll theft update.